Hello, everybody, and welcome to Q&A. What's this called? This is called How to Get Hired, where it's an open forum Q&A on careers, resumes, job interviews, networking, anything you want, really. That's what it's for. And just want to remind everyone, if you haven't checked out my latest video that I have on my channel, go back and see that. It's really wonderful. And also, if you are new to the whole job search thing, you've just been immersed in it. You're pushed into the swimming pool in the deep end, and you feel insecure. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to go about doing it, etc., etc. I have this course, so check that out. Link in the description. It's basically a one-stop shop for how to get hired. Using a couple of different methods, conventional methods where you deal with recruiters, and also networking, some of the more common networking things you can do that are for introverts, and it's what a lot of executives do, and coincidentally, you can take advantage of it too. Alternatively, if you are looking to learn business, I also have this course, the $100 MBA. So you learn everything you would learn in a traditional MBA that you would learn in university. And same source, same material. All comes from textbooks. It's a self-study thing. There's no tests, no evaluations. The purpose of this is just a very efficient way and convenient way to learn business. And the primary application for this is usually if you want to have your own business, you want to be an entrepreneur of some kind, start with the knowledge. Don't learn everything the hard way. Okay? So if that's something that you're interested in, check out the link in the description. And that's all the self-promotion I'm going to do. It's Monday. It's my live stream day, and I'm back. There are 12 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me here today. If you see the chat box, get in the chat box and start asking me questions. I'm here to see if I can help you out. I do this for fun. Yes, maybe I should see a doctor about it, but this is my idea of fun. Speaking was always my weak area. I have a lot more business skills than I have speaking abilities, but here I am speaking to people all day long for fun. It's wonderful. But if I can be of some help, that's why I do this. I've gotten a lot of really, really very complimentary things that people have said, and that makes it worthwhile. So to start off, actually, there's a couple of things. If I can get my screen going here. This is my latest video. There was a couple of questions here, just for want of a starting point. We had one here from, Jason Voorhees. Okay, that's a promising start. I just had an interview about an hour ago, and I have to say I've been watching your videos, really helped. Thought I'd be interviewed by a recruiter or HR, but it was an IT manager, a help desk manager, and the director of IT. So 3 people. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Can I do that? Yeah, here we go. Nope, that didn't work. Nope, I've lost it. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, here we go. Okay. It was one of my top 3 best interviews. Nothing about soft skills or the tell me about yourself, just a few technical questions and scenarios with introductions about them. Yeah, that's really good when you get asked technical questions. If you know your stuff and you're dealing with someone who knows their stuff, then it can really work. If you're dealing with someone that doesn't know their stuff, it can be a disaster. I did tell them my past experience and things once they were done. Overall, a great interview. And thanks for all your videos. Okay, that's great. Not much of a question. I think this is a question here. Thanks for the great information. Could you please create a video on how best to approach a business or corporation to hire us for a service outside of their hireable positions? Basically making a business proposal on how does when bypass HR if the position I've created doesn't yet exist within the company. Yes, okay, that's a good question. It's a little bit convoluted. You wouldn't really, look, according to me, you wouldn't really go about doing it quite like that. But the idea is that basically, to answer your question in 2 words, informational interviews. Okay, that's what you do. And what this will do is if you can sit down with a decision maker, a professional, usually an executive in your industry, in your hometown or your region, wherever you are, and just have a face-to-face kind of interview, it can be really, really useful. The format of these things is that you basically ask them questions, okay? Why do people do this? Well, in a nutshell, executives, certainly, they are far more accepting of this type of request than you would think, okay? Because part of their job is to face the public. They take unsolicited queries from the public, and they don't always know who these people are. Now, if you approach them in a very professional way, you say, hello, my name is this. I'd very much love to ask you a couple of questions about your industry. Would that be okay? I would love to get your expert opinion on a couple of things. A lot of people will say yes. Some people are paranoid and they'll say no. Other people, they have whatever personal hang up, but a lot of executives will say yes to that. The reason being is that they don't know who you are. You could be the press, you could be a potential business partner, you could be a potential investor, you could be a potential vendor or supplier or institutional customer. You could be the media, you could be the government, you could be a regulator. I mean, they don't know. So it's good policy just to accept these, especially if someone has gone through proper protocol. Okay. So that's what I would do. Now, in terms of making a business proposal, that's not really you can do that. That does sometimes work, but you got to really know what you're doing. You got to really have insider information of what they're looking to do, what their attitudes are on a lot of things. And most people don't have that. So that's why I recommend going the informational interview route. Now, if they say some interesting things like, in the future, we're hoping to get into this area and that area, and you have skills in that area and you want to work in that area, one way to do it is to go away and then come back like 2 weeks later and send them a message and saying, I've been thinking about what you said. And, that's really intriguing. And I'm just so you know, if ever you need help with that, I have skills in that area. I can do this for you. Let me know. No pressure. Thank you. Something like that. And that's about as benign as it gets. And, if they're looking for someone to help them with that, then you're an obvious candidate. You're a prime candidate. You're interested. You're tuned into it. They've already met you. Presumably they like you. You have a personal connection. So that can lead to a lot of opportunities. So that's how that stuff kind of works. And that's the way I'd recommend. Incidentally, that's also a variation of the method that I've described in this course, my Get Hired course. So I cover that among other methods too. Okay, so get in the chat, everybody. If you got questions, there's 16 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me. Steve N says, if someone in an interview asked how you would reorganize an international remote team and you had no background, what would you say? Okay, well, reorganize to what? Or what's the issue? Like how you would organize it, you mean? How you would set it up, or how you would reorganize it? If they're asking you how to reorganize something, that means it's already organized, but there's something that's not really working. It's suboptimal in some way. So you would have to get information on that, right? It's like saying, how would you fix an international team? Well, in order to answer that, you need to know what the problem is, right? So I don't know if that has an answer, technically. Now, let's pretend that that's literally all they gave you, okay? Let's also pretend that maybe these people are idiots who think that's like a fully formed question. What I would say is like, well, listen, you want to make sure that certain things are in place, okay? First of all, at the top of the list is going to be communication, right? So if there's language barriers or there's other impediments to communication, you're going to want to discover those and mitigate those, okay? Secondly, if you're dealing internationally, there may be other practical logistical issues, like, for example, the different time zones around the world. If you're leading an international team, just trying to get everybody at the same meeting can be a challenge, depending on the details. If you have somebody in New Zealand, somebody in Europe, somebody in South America, somebody in London, somebody in in Hawaii, it's going to be a real challenge to get people all in the room at the same time. If it's a 24/7 operation, then you can do that. If you don't, then You got to jump through a few hoops, and that will affect communication both ways. How you get information back from the team, how the debriefings work, and how you get instructions out to the team, okay, the briefing. And if they have to coordinate their work, okay, the work is being divided up and allocated to different people. If they have to interoperate, okay, and people are all around the world, they're all on different schedules and different time zones, that can be a major impediment to doing things efficiently, okay? So, you can say like, look, let's reorganize around, say, maybe 2 meetings a day. And hopefully wherever you are in the world, you can make one or the other every day. Okay. So, one, if you're in North America, say one like super early in the morning and then one super like late in the afternoon. It may be possible to do that kind of thing. So, not to mention dealing with different currencies, different business practices, different laws. You know what I mean? There's all these different challenges to an international team. Okay, so if people are working internationally, you're going to have all kinds of issues like this. The blanket way to address them is to understand them first, recognize they're there, take them seriously, and then work with the people affected in coming up with solutions that work not only for them, but for the entire team. Okay, that's the challenge. So, if that's all I had to go on, it isn't a fully fledged question. I would say something along those lines. And there you go. That's from Steve N. That's the only question I've received so far. I do have a couple of questions that people had asked me yesterday, just sent in. So I'm just going to work on those until we get something else in the chat. Somebody asked why motivation and traits are so important for a job instead of qualifications. That stood out to me. That's an excellent question. This is what a lot of people are struggling with. Hopefully, most people know a job interview really is not about your technical skills. It's about your soft skills, okay? And beyond soft skills, it's also to do with your motivations, okay? Because the way these things generally work is that the candidates that they have invited to do an interview, those candidates, on paper, they're qualified. Okay, the issue of whether you're qualified or not, that's over. Okay, because if you weren't qualified, they would have never asked you to come in for an interview. Interviews are time consuming and they're troublesome and they're annoying and people generally don't like doing them. Nobody likes doing them. The interviewers don't like doing them. Okay, an interview isn't that big of a deal, but when you've got to do 12 of them in a day, you'll see what I'm talking about. It just gets very tedious. And so why would you waste everybody's time? These are professionals that you invite to the meeting. They cost a lot of money per hour to employ these people. Why would you take up several hours of their time, having them sit in a meeting, an interview, talking to someone who on paper is not even qualified to do the job? It doesn't make any sense, right? Excuse me. So all the people that go to a job interview, all the candidates that are selected, there's not any real concern over whether they're qualified or not, technically, okay? They could all do the job. Any kind of thing that isn't ideal can be worked around, okay? What the interview is there to do is to determine whether you would work in that role. Now, what do you need to work in a role? Well, several things. First of all, you have to actually want to do the job, okay? Now, there are a few people out there, as you can, I'm sure, imagine, that are desperate for a job. And they apply to anything, to everything. And the reality is they may not care at all about doing that type of work. They actually hate doing that type of work. In addition, they really don't want to do that type of job. They don't want to work in a big company. It's really not where they want to be. And things like this. So it doesn't matter how qualified they are to do the work if they just don't want to do it, right? Because we tend to, as humans, we tend to not end up doing things we really don't want to do, right? We tend to be lazy on the job. We tend to find excuses to not do it. I don't know if you guys have ever had a job that you hated. You know, a lot of people can relate. You'll find ways of not doing your job. Maybe you take a 1 hour bathroom break. I don't know. But people will find ways of getting out of doing it, or they do the absolute bare minimum. If you go below that bare minimum, you'd be fired, right? So they don't want to end up with an employee like that. They want someone who actually enjoys doing this type of work. They are excited about doing it. Okay. Now, maybe that's a tall order for some jobs. Let's face it. Not every job is super glamorous and really exciting, but they're trying to push for a candidate that thinks like that and feels like that. Okay. So you actually want to do the job. Let's say you've done a lot of previous jobs and they're all very high level stuff. And then in order to take this job, it's a real step down. You're going right back down, and because we all have egos and things, maybe the person, they won't really be into it. They'll find the job demeaning and things like this. If they're given instructions from their boss, maybe they constantly rebel against the instructions they're given. They say, no, that's stupid. I mean, and it's because they used to be in that role. They were used to giving orders. Now they're taking them and they find it demeaning and they have no interest in doing it. They're only doing it because they need money, right? Employers are not looking for that type of person. They're ideally looking for someone who wants to be there, who's very thankful to get the job. They're excited about the prospect of doing it. That's what they're pushing for. So these are the things that they're testing for in a job interview. They're wanting to find evidence of that, okay? And finally, I'll say that it's not just about, your interest. It's also about your traits, okay? You could be qualified to do a job. You could be interested to do that job. And you could be interested in the work. But let's say that you are absolutely insufferable. You're bad-tempered. You have terrible communication skills. Everything that somebody says to you, you misinterpret. You take offense to it. You are confused by it because you don't understand. You use different lingo, different terminology. And then on top of that, when you try and communicate to other people, you come across as really offensive, angry, off-putting. Nobody wants to work with you. People get nervous around you. Something like that, right? Now, so in that case, it doesn't matter if you're qualified for the job. It doesn't matter that you want to work there. People can't work with you. Okay? Maybe you have a really bad temper, or you've got some kind of other weird personal hang-up that affects your performance, and it affects others around you, right? That would be something that employers want to know, right? So this is the other thing they're testing for in the interview when they're seeing what you're like in person, right? The idea is that how you behave in the interview is some kind of weird preview of how you would behave on the job. It's an idealized version of how you would behave on the job. So if there's red flags dealing with you in the interview, there's going to be even more red flags later if they were to hire you. That's the theory, okay? Rightly or wrongly, that's the theory. Okay? So that's what job interviews are about. And that's why, coming back to this question, it said, why motivation, etc., and traits are so important for a job, not just qualifications. That's because it's what the interviews are actually about. The resume was about the technical skills. The interview is about motivations and traits. Okay, getting back to the chat. I see we have some questions. Thank you for keeping the questions coming. I think I already did that one. Yes. Okay, so Mary Grace. Hello, Mary Grace. Mary Grace says, I just completed 3 weeks at a new job working a graveyard schedule. It is disorganized and poorly managed. I was supposed to get my first paycheck, but I did not get a live check nor direct deposit. Okay. Was there a question? I see you're responding to other people, so maybe there was a question. Jeff S. says, how seriously should I take a senior director telling me that I did not get the exact position that I applied for, but that he would like to get me on his team? It doesn't matter how seriously you take it. You'll never know what people's intentions are, what their thoughts are. Just accept it. Okay, that's what living in the world is like. Especially when it comes to this type of conversation, it's very sensitive. Okay, people's emotions get involved. Like, oh no, if you tell me you're not hiring me or you're not putting me on your team, it's a very emotional thing. People can take it as like some kind of personal rejection, or maybe there's some animosity. Maybe they then immediately jump to thinking about, oh, it's because you're biased. It's a very highly delicate situation. So you'll never know what their real thoughts are. Okay, what you hear is a sort of maybe diplomatic communication, but you never really know if it's like when people say, I'll get back to you, like the understanding is that they'll never get back to you, right? It's a euphemism for, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. Nothing's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe in the future, who knows, but nothing's happening. It's a no. So you'll never know that. So it doesn't matter, okay? You never will know. You can't just do some little trick to find out this information, okay? What their real uncensored thoughts are. If they ever intend to actually put you on a team, or that's just something nice that they're saying to cushion the letdown, okay? Jeff S. goes on. He says, he told me that he has to speak with HR and will hopefully have me apply to a new requisition in a few weeks. Yeah. Well, look, as I said, you really don't know. Now, if someone put a gun to my head and said, you have to make a call, is this legitimate or is this euphemistic BS? I would say the latter. I would say this is probably not going to happen simply because the time frame is a few weeks, okay? If it's important, usually things don't happen in a few weeks, okay? They'll happen in a couple of days, right? If it's important and if it's a priority, okay? A few weeks, that sounds to me like it's engineered, because a few weeks is a time frame that doesn't sound like a kiss off. Like if somebody says, I'll get back to you in 5 years, that sounds like a kiss off because, that the time frame's too long. If, however, they said, I'll get back to you in a couple of days, then your hopes are still up pretty high, right? But a few weeks is this sort of sweet spot where there's enough time that's going to pass where you've probably forgotten about it, or you might have just intuitively gotten the message and the vibe that it's not really happening and it's not this big letdown. I have to explicitly tell you. But yet it's so close that it doesn't sound like an obvious kiss off. Okay, so if I had to guess, I would say that, but it doesn't matter. Pursue opportunities. If they work out and these people call back and they give you something, great. If they don't, nothing changes. Keep pursuing more opportunities, okay? If you're not happy in your current position, you want to move upwards, you want to be doing this kind of work, start pursuing opportunities to make that happen. Okay, don't just wait on this executive. Okay, go out and generate more opportunities. It's a numbers game. Okay, if every time you pursue an opportunity, you have, say, a 5% chance, 10% chance of getting it, then you have to generate a long line of these for something to come along soon. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, Jeff S. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm like you, but this is the reality that we live in. Nobody's going to be honest, especially when it comes to giving bad news, especially if they don't know you very well. They're going to say euphemistic things that are essentially a kiss off. Don't hold your breath. Just keep pursuing new opportunities, moving ahead. Do what's right for you. Zandrozen says, are you guys able to see my messages? I can see it. Mary Grace can. Alex says, how do I overcome questions about recent low sales quota attainment and being out of work for 6 months? I was laid off after the company as a whole performed low. Are they asking you about your sales performance specifically? Is that what we're talking about here? Now, the obvious thing that comes to my mind, not knowing any of the background or details behind this, is saying, well, look, if sales are down across the board, my sales are down proportionately with that. It's in line with a systemic drop-off in sales. So it's not due to my personal performance. Now, if that's true, you can say that, okay? If they're demanding an explanation or something. However, if the situation is that your personal performance, like you have been underperforming in this metric, then obviously you can't say that. You're going to have to come up with something else, right? And, without knowing any kind of context to this, it's hard to say what the fix is. But, being able to provide an explanation for it that's justifiable, and then sort of following up hard upon with a path forward, the way you're going to fix it, the way you're going to overcome this. So, for example, saying something like, well, my lower performance was because I was assigned this particular, group of customers, this class of customers, okay, or market segment. I was tasked with selling to them. Now, the theory was that they would be interested in this. That hasn't worked out. But, it's because that class of customers just aren't interested in this product for this reason. Okay. However, the way forward is I'd like to get off that class of customer and be reassigned to these customers over here, or this market segment where I can make sales there, or this method, or using this product, like selling this particular product instead of that one, or whatever it is. Here's the fix. And the number should go back up because they haven't shown this systemic decline. Something like that, right? You say, this is what caused it. I know for a fact, and this is the fix for it. And once we implement this, it won't be a problem. That's the format of how you want to answer that anyway. Or at least what a reasonable person would accept. Alphonse. Bonjour, Alphonse. Comment ça va? Hi there. I've benefited from your information video. Well, thank you. I'm glad. That's good to hear. Som says, as I am an introvert, I am not fond of talking. I am an introvert and I talk a lot, but it doesn't do me any good. I have a very likable personality. That's good. And when an interviewer asks me a question, I black out, even though I know the answer. Can you tell me what I should do? Now, hopefully by blackout, it means that you draw blank, because blackout is where you lose consciousness and fall on the ground, right? So hopefully that's not what's going on. If so, you might need to get like a football helmet or something. But if it's just you don't know the question, you can't think on the spot. Number one, if that's the case, you're not alone. Okay, that's how a lot of people start out, especially introverts. If social interaction is not, your sort of comfort zone, if it doesn't come naturally, and believe me, I don't know I know exactly what you're talking about. That's how everybody starts. Okay. Now the way around it in the short term, if it's for something specific like a job interview, okay, and I believe you mentioned it's an interview. An interviewer asked me a question. So the way around it to improve in the short term is to do a lot of preparation. Okay. Now, it isn't simply a technical matter of learning answers to questions. Okay. That's not really what the problem is. The problem is when you're in this social situation and someone is asking these questions of you and you're kind of nervous, it prevents you from, even though you might be able to answer that properly, say if it was a written test and there wasn't an awkward social situation, you'd be able to get the answer right. But because the problem is the social interaction, okay, because you're nervous, you feel anxiety, you're not comfortable, interacting in this type of environment, that's what you got to work on. Okay. So not to always sound like a broken record, but the way to practice this is to do mock interviews, okay? Pretend interviews. So you grab a friend or a family member or anyone. I mean, executives pay HR companies to do this with them, okay? They pay people a lot of money to do practice job interviews with them. Not only does it give you an opportunity to practice, if you're practicing with somebody, they can then give you feedback on what their impressions were and what they think, are your good points, what they think you should work on. Okay. But that's what you should do to overcome this problem, because you're practicing essentially your public speaking skills. You're talking to somebody and you're working through the anxiety, okay, of the situation. Now, if you do this enough, let's say you did 4 of these every day, okay? After 3 weeks of doing 4 of these mock interviews every day, you will kick ass, okay? You will not be intimidated by an interview type situation, or if you are, it'll be far less than you were. You'll be much better rehearsed in the type of answers for like many, many different types of questions. So no matter almost whatever they could throw at you, you'll have an answer, okay? And you've practiced saying those answers in sort of a real simulation of, a real simulation of like this nervousness, this anxiety, okay? So that's what you got to do to get over this in a hurry. Like if you want to get over it like really quickly, okay, in 3 weeks you could be over this. Okay, you could not have anxiety be a issue when you do a job interview again. Okay? But this is what you got to do to get there. Okay? You got to practice. And you can't just practice by yourself. You got to practice in a similar situation with somebody staring at you, somebody asking you questions you're not expecting. They get to pick the questions, right? And they're looking at you, as you're answering, right? So their eyes are upon you in a similar situation to an actual job interview. And that's how you can do this stuff. And practice makes perfect. The more you do, the better you get. And the more these things don't hold you back. Okay, Alex. Now, Alex was the one talking about the low sales business. Now, you're saying, yes, me specifically. Okay, so it's your sales performance. Well, okay, and I see you continue on. With being out of work 6 months, is there a savvy way to explain the gap? The reality is I've been applying for jobs but haven't secured one yet. Okay, what I think you should do, once again, not to sound like a broken record, but this is a solution, is if you're just applying for jobs, that's fine, but as part of a job search campaign, don't just do that, okay? You need to be doing other things. And in this situation, when there's some hitch, like for example, if you're changing careers or you have a long work gap or anything like that, anything non-standard, okay? Those are the type of situations where the solution tends to be networking, okay? So what I would encourage you to do is learn about how to do informational interviews, okay? This is going to be the way out of the situation for you. It's not only a way out of this, but it's a way to get a job where the person hiring you believes in you and likes you, okay? It tends to lead to good jobs that way, okay? In addition, the best jobs usually, they're not posted publicly because they're in such high demand. You don't have to canvass the wide world of strangers to find someone who would do it. Because it's a desirable job, you probably know people that would jump at having that job. Right? So you're also opening up this market of good jobs that was previously hidden. Right? It's a hidden job market. That's why it's called that. So networking is the way to do that. Now, the idea is that, if you're a salesperson, even a salesperson that's struggling with some stuff or might be struggling with some stuff, this should be child's play to you, okay? So I've done some videos on my channel. Look, I'm not going to explain everything from scratch here. It'll take me like an hour, but let's see here. I just want to show everyone. Okay, let's see if I can. Come on. Okay, so if we go to my YouTube channel, let's see here. This is my YouTube channel. Okay, just the main page. You can start with this. Okay, how to tap the hidden job market. This is a playlist. Now I've done stuff since then. This is kind of old and the quality of the video is not very good, but the information is still very good. Okay, just do this playlist. I mean, what are we talking about? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. You know, just go through this, and that should at least give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. Okay. Pursue this way of getting jobs. Okay, this is extremely promising. Okay. Don't just be applying for stuff, especially if you've got like a work gap or there's some other issue that looks bad in a job interview because they don't know the backstory. It just has a bad first impression. That's usually where networking can come in and solve that problem completely. Okay. I mean, yeah, you can explain a gap. Anyone can explain it. The problem is that you're explaining it to a person who doesn't know you. You're a stranger. And so whatever explanation you give, it may still look bad to them, right? That's what you're up against. That's the problem with the standard channels of getting a job. Standard channels is when you find a publicly posted job, you then respond to it with an application. It goes to a recruiter. The recruiter brings you in for an interview and then gives you an offer. That's the standard channels, okay? That's the procedure. That's the process that a lot of recruiters, people in HR, will like to funnel you through. Now, as you either know already or you can easily verify this, don't take my word for this, go and do your own research, you'll see it's true. Most people don't go through that process. Most people who have jobs got their job not by going through that process, but by going outside of it, usually some form of networking. Okay? Right? Maybe you've dealt with somebody at that company before. Just to do your job, you're interfacing with them. And maybe you've worked together or, over a few years, right? And then you contacted them and said, you know what? Don't tell anyone, but I'm thinking of applying. I see your company has a job opening in your department. Does it make sense for me to apply for that? Like, should I put my... And they'll say, sure, yeah, you'd be great for it. Here, let me put in a good word for you. If you give me your resume or something, I'll pass it on to my boss, who's the hiring manager for it. Something like that, right? And who would your boss rather hire? Someone that their trusted subordinate has worked with for years that's giving a personal recommendation that this person is good, you should hire them. Or go with a stranger. Like, just spin the wheel. It could be anyone. It could be a psychopath, could be a criminal, right? We don't know. Who are they going to go with? They're going to go with the person that someone that they trust has personally vouched for, right? They put their reputation on the line to recommend this person, right? Who would you go with? If you were the boss, you'd go with them, right? So, that's common. There's many other common scenarios, but that's the situation most people go through. Now, if you don't have a personal connection at the company, you can still take advantage of networking. You do informational interviews and things like it. Or you just put out a broadcast, right? There's ways of doing that too. Anyway, if you're interested in any of this stuff, I have a lot of videos on that on my channel. And if you want to go even deeper and have it all in one place, there's that Get Hired course where I cover that from beginning to end. Where did I leave off here? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to Alex, okay? Yeah, I've also done videos on how to explain a work gap, so if that also is interesting to you, check that out. Alphonse says, I did my third interview for a senior position about 2 weeks ago, and they promised that I will be contacted. Still waiting. Should I follow up with an email? Sure, why not? Why would you not follow up? Remember, this is not school. You don't have to worry about, oh no, I don't know if I might annoy people by asking about this thing they said they were going to do, right? No, the way you do it is you just write an email. Listen, it's best to follow up in person if you can do it. Failing that, follow up by phone. Failing that, then send an email, okay? Emails are very easy to ignore. They're not a great tool to follow up or jog people's memory or develop some kind of urgency. But the way you would do it if you do send an email, you just say hello, I'm just following up. A couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation about this role. Just curious if there's been any new developments on it. Eager to hear if there's an opportunity there. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Something like that, If you have any questions, please let me know. Here's my number, whatever. Okay, so there's absolutely no reason why you would not send that. You're not breaking any kind of protocol. You're not doing anything unreasonable in any way humanly conceivable by sending that, especially if it's very professional, very polite. You have a legitimate reason for asking, right? So go for it. Tim Hortons. I think that they go outside to the parking lot, scoop up mud from a sort of a puddle, or maybe some pond scum or something, put a little bit of artificial sweetener in and sell it to people. I remember years ago, I went to a Tim Hortons and I ordered an ice cap or something like that. Iced coffee, iced cappuccino, whatever. And it was an ice cap, and I wanted cream in it. Can I get some extra cream in my ice cap? And I got a lecture from some 20-year-old Tim Hortons employee how they couldn't put cream in my coffee. Apparently, the entire thing was perfect as it is. It was a product, self-contained, cannot be altered or adulterated by putting cream in the coffee, apparently. Those happy, warm memories. Yeah. I normally don't drink Tim Hortons, but whatever. When you're that desperate, I guess it works out. I can't believe there's 22 of you guys here listening to me ramble on about this garbage. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Okay, where do they leave off? Jeff S. or Sam says, thank you so much. You're absolutely welcome, Sam. Jeff S. is negotiating a salary for a promotion or a move to a new team within the company. What? That I am working for accepted practice? Okay. Jeff S., clean up your grammar, please. It'll make you more effective. Okay. Is negotiating a salary for a promotion or a move to a new team within the company that I'm working for accepted practice? So is it accepted practice to negotiate as opposed to what? Being dictated to? Look, you can do whatever you want. Okay. If you want to try and negotiate something, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, depending on the situation, you have to also understand that they may, their hands might be tied and they can't actually, give you more money or something. The other thing is that it may be a factor that they could do it, but they don't want to. And they get offended by the fact that you try to negotiate. That's possible. I mean, usually that's a sign of like a very petty type person, but that's also a possibility. Okay, so you can do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, there is a flip side to it, and you should be okay with that. Like, for example, something that I know a lot of people have seen is when bosses will pull these very, these just slimy kind of tactics. They'll give you a promotion where what they do is they just tack on job duties, but they don't increase your compensation in any way. So now you're responsible for more, but you don't get compensated for it. Okay. Now, can they do that? Sure. And sometimes maybe the business is not doing very well. They might, feel a lot of pressure to do it. Maybe they themselves have had to take on more responsibilities without any increase in compensation. Maybe they've had to take a pay cut. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? So it may not always be possible, right? So if you then go to them and say, well, no, I need a lot more money to do this when the business is actually in the process of failing, that can be bad, right? You know, or their budget or something is not being increased or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. Okay, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it. But I just did a short. I haven't done many short videos, you know. I don't like to jump on trends and stuff. It took me a long time to get into shorts. But I did one like yesterday, just for like 20 seconds, a 20-second short on salary negotiation. And basically I was saying it's all about having other options. If you only have one option, and that's to accept whatever they give you, how can you negotiate? You don't have any power. You could say, I want this. And then they say, no, here's what you're getting. Take it or leave it. The only option you have is you can either take this or you can leave the company and be unemployed. But those are your only two options. Right? Okay, so if that's your situation, how can you negotiate? You have absolutely no negotiating power. If you threaten to leave, and more than threaten, you have to be prepared for your bluff to be called, okay, if it's a bluff. So you're prepared to leave. You might have something else lined up or you have other options, right? And it hurts them. It's disruptive. You know it's going to take them at least 6 months to get a person in there and get them over the learning curves to the point where they're as productive as you were, right? It's going to take 6 months to do that. So they're going to feel pain if you leave, right? Your boss is going to be in for a really rough time. Your coworkers are going to be in for a rough time. It's going to be disruptive. You know, then you have something to negotiate with, right? But remember, any bluff you make is going to have to be called. So the best thing to do is to just get other options. Go and put out some job applications, whatever, and see if anyone, is willing to offer you anything. And then if you have that, negotiation is an absolute no-brainer. You say, I need this. And they say, no, we can't give you that. You say, okay, bye. And then they usually go, wait. Okay, hold on. Let's not be hasty here. Okay, fine. We'll give you, how about this? It's 3/4 of what you asked for. Okay, cool. I'll stay. I'm happy to be here. Right? That's how this stuff works. Moises, is that how you say that? Hi, this is Moises. Do I have to do this? Moises. Congratulations from Mexico. I appreciate all advice and insight. Thank you very much, Moises. You are awesome, and I'm glad that it's working out for you. I have a question. Are you considering have some material in Spanish? No, I wasn't planning on it. Not that I have any issue with that. It's just, I do this entire channel myself. I don't employ people. It's not like a real big business venture or anything. It's just something I do on the side. And I don't know how to do that. And I mean, I can't generate Spanish, dubs myself. And I did take 1 year of Spanish when I was 15 years old. So unfortunately, my Spanish skills are not up to. Hola, mi nombre es Guillermo. Right? So, but if I don't know, if I get to like 1 million subscribers and my views double, triple, whatever, then maybe it would make sense. But they have auto translate stuff, don't they? Like, can't you do that? Anyway, yeah, sorry, I haven't thought about it before. You're the first person to suggest that to me. So, but thank you for the suggestion. It's now a thing, thanks to you. Jillian Moody, in person, following up in person. Is this surprising to you? Yes, in person, right? I'm assuming that you're talking about, I believe the question where I said that was someone that's talking about in the same organization as they are. So you go down the hall to your boss's office, you knock on the, door jamb, you say, hey, you got a couple of minutes? And then usually they'll say yes. You say, okay, I'm just following up on this. Was there ever any word or any developments on that? Something like that. Much more powerful than sending an email. I mean, how easy is it to ignore an email? How many emails do you get every day that are just spam? I get a ton of them. extremely easy to ignore. What's less easy to ignore is a trusted employee that you want to stay in their good graces because you need them to do some good work for you. And they're right in your face. And there's a lot of social pressure to say yes. And they're asking. Right? A lot more pressure. Mr. Friendly says, I enjoy your content. Great job. Thank you. And I enjoy your name. That's a great name, Mr. Friendly. Leah S. says, I have an interview in a couple of days. I haven't had an interview in over 7 years. Do companies still ask for references? Just wondering if I should have some ready if they ask at the interview. Yes, they do. Usually not on like a first interview. Okay. I mean, there's always exceptions, right? Some people ask for references in the original application, which I think is idiotic. But the way it usually goes is that you send in your application. Then, if you get selected for an interview, they do 1 or 2 or 3 interviews, depending on what job it is. And then if they're serious about you, if you're like in the final 3 or something, at that point, they'll want to start doing reference checks. Okay. So usually they will ask you when you get to that stage, if you get to that stage. That's usually when that comes into the discussion. Okay. Because they're not going to check references for like every candidate. I mean, that's very time consuming and completely unnecessary. Once they get down to the final 3, final 5, that's when, they're going to start looking at, doing background checks and things like all. That's when they do that kind of stuff. So that's usually when they hit you up for references. And references, excuse me, they can be your previous boss. They can be previous coworkers. Maybe you left a place and you didn't get along with your boss or something. You're nervous about giving your boss as a reference. If it's really a problem, you can sometimes get away with giving coworkers, right? And saying like, look, I worked with this person for 7 years. They know me. We worked together. So they're a good reference, what I'm like as a person and as a professional, right? You can sometimes give personal references, people that, they don't know you through work. They know you through your personal life. They know you far more as a person than somebody like at your place of work. So depending on what they ask for, okay, if you're comfortable giving, say, 3 employers, your previous 3 bosses, that's really good. If they ask for your current employer, that can sometimes be problematic. A lot of times it is, because you're leaving to go to this new job, right? And usually your boss is not really happy about that. So they're not going to say, oh yeah, take my greatest employee, take this employee that when they leave, it makes my life a living hell at work, But yeah, it's usually not a problem. Excuse me. It's just Tim Hortons coffee. A little bit more pond scum in it than usual. Jillian Moody says, truthfully, depends on the Tim Hortons. Sometimes you got to go upscale. Yeah, I know. I'm a Starbucks. I'm not one of those like coffee aficionados where you order something and it's like 8 words, There's about 2 or 3 things I'll order from Starbucks, and that's it. That's like the 2 or 3 things I know. And I have no interest in like really learning about anything else. But just, I don't know. I've had some weird experiences at Tim Hortons, shall we say. There's some people that have really found their calling working there. I'll just leave it at that. Monsieur Alphonse says, thank you for your great answer to my question. Well, you're absolutely welcome, Alphonse, and thank you for being here. Jeff S., sorry, that was a very poorly written question. Don't worry about it, Jeff. That's pale. Hey, I taught students. This is nothing. You can't hold a candle to some of the stuff I've had to read. Castro. Wow, like the Castro? That's interesting. I feel very, I don't know if I should be honored or outraged or whatever, but that's interesting. I'm So if this was asked, I just got here. Oh, I'm sorry if this was okay. I thought you were saying, I'm so, like, if this was asked, I wouldn't be here. You know, that kind of thing. If you can put on a Valley Girl accent, but yet be a middle-aged man, I would do it. That's how I should do my next videos, I think. Do employee background checks verify employment history by W-2s? Well, that's an American thing, I'm assuming. W-2s? I don't know what that is. It sounds American. They like to list forms as if everyone knows what they're talking about. That's going to vary. I mean, in the United States, don't the labor laws vary by state? So some states, they'll allow you to do one thing, in another state, they won't. I mean, you know, it's gonna vary. Now, you can find that out in the vast majority of cases. You can do a Google search. So let's say you're in, I don't know, Wisconsin or something. You can do a Google search and say, like, employment standards, law or whatever, you know, verify, you know, employment check or whatever you're asking about. And it will take you right to the law. Usually they post the laws publicly. And they're not written in legalese. They're written, like, labor laws are written in pretty basic English so that everyday regular Joes can read the labor laws and understand them. That's the whole point. You don't need some kind of lawyer or expert to read the law and understand it. They make it so that everyday people with, like, a sort of grade 10, grade 12, whatever education can understand it easily. So you can easily get answers to that. On this channel, I've done it for, like, my region, you know? Let's just do it very, very, very quickly here. Like, for example, I happen to know the name of the act, but so employment standard, look at that right there, Employment Standards Manitoba. So can I say act, which is the actual law? So if I go to the first sort of result, is this it here? Employment Standards Code. So here you go. This is the actual law. Now, I do a Control F, okay? And then what were you asking about? Employment history. Okay, nothing by that. Verify. Why is this not working here? Verification. Okay, here you go. Notice of leave for service. So, like, you know, you scan this, right? Okay, so this is if you're wanting to leave a job. How do they verify it? Provide verification for paid leave, require verification for unpaid leave, right? We're just going to go down, you know, this kind of thing. Reasonable verification, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully you get the idea, right? You can, I mean, I'm kind of put on the spot. I'm live here, but, you know, if you had, say, 20 minutes to research this, whatever the specific question was for you, you can get answers like that pretty quickly. This is what the law says. It says right here in this section of the law, for this region, for all the employers here, this is what they got to do when it comes to verifying, you know, employment history or something like that. Now, where were we here? Okay, employee background checks. Yeah, and there'll be something there too about background checks. I mean, I don't know what region you're in, but I'm pretty sure. Uh-oh, is someone speaking Spanish to me? Hola. ¿Qué tal, amigo? About 1:45. Yeah. Something about hi and my friend. So, hi, back to you. Julia. Dan Fleming says, with AI, you could have versions of your video appear like you actually spoke in Spanish. Ooh. There we go. You see, this is the advantage when you have some young people with some tech skills here. Well, thanks, Dan. That's interesting. Leah S., thank you so much for the advice. Absolutely my pleasure, Leah. Castro, LOL, I invested in an espresso machine. Is that like a knockoff espresso machine? For $150 and made my money back on it already by making my own lattes. Right on. Is this like where you put a little something extra in the lattes to make people happy? That should be the next step, right? It would be a fun day at the office, when you have that machine on the next to the water cooler. Castro, no affiliation to Cuba. Right on. But do you smoke a large cigar at all times? That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. No, that's great. GenDebt37, how do you solve the overqualified issue? Hiring managers won't believe I like the area and won't move across the country anymore for a job coming from a plant manager position. Listen, it depends when you get that question. If you get it in an interview, it's BS. Because if they honestly, truly felt that on paper you were overqualified, you would not even be at the interview. Okay? So if they say you seem overqualified, or tell us why you don't, you're not overqualified, or something like that, some hostile kind of question where they basically accuse you of something, the answer is no, I don't believe I'm overqualified. And then you answer it like they're asking, what are your strengths? What are your strengths? The answer is like you tell them that you have all the things that they're looking for, right? Or at least you speak to all the things that they're looking for and reassure them how it's not going to be a problem, right? So for example, if they say, aren't you overqualified for this job? You say, no, I don't believe I am overqualified in any way. I mean, as I understand it, you guys are looking for somebody who has this. Well, I have that. You're also looking for someone who's got this education. I have that. And you're looking for someone that has 5 years experience in this. I have 7. I mean, to me, that's not overqualified. That's fully meeting the requirements for this job. And I don't feel that this job is beneath me or in any way. I think this would be a great position to have. I'm excited about it. I think I could really speak to what you're looking for here and add value. That's how you answer that question. They don't really think it. If they do think it legitimately, they're a bunch of idiots. What the hell are they doing talking to you if you're way out of the league of what they would ever employ? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why did you call me here today if I don't have what you're obviously clearly looking for, right? So it's another one of those really stupid, annoying kind of things that some interviewers will do, and they have no clue how to assess somebody, right? But that's how you answer it. Okay? And that's all you can do. I mean, people are going to say, sometimes people just say stupid things in interviews. It really shows like a window into their psyche, how out to lunch they really are when it comes to assessing people. Maybe they invited you down for a job that clearly doesn't apply to you. Maybe they never actually read your resume. They just sort of, okay, we need 5 applicants here, whatever. Let's take the first 5, right? I mean, like you really get an insight into how incompetent people are and out to lunch they are. So you do encounter that, okay? But if it's asked by a reasonable person in a reasonable situation, that's how I would respond to that. Okay. I mean, how do you get overqualified for a plant manager position? Answer me that. You got plant managers that have been plant managers for 40 years, right? And that's regarded as a good thing. Tell me, please, what would it require to be overqualified for a plant manager? Maybe you're a former president of the United States and they say, well, I'm sorry, you can't do this job because you're overqualified. Is that a thing? You know what I mean? So that's just what's kind of going through my mind, if I understand that correctly. Castro says W-2 is federal income tax form for employees, and that's hilarious. I'm in Wisconsin. Right on. The Making a Murderer series, was that in Wisconsin? I watched that. I watched the first 2 seasons. That's interesting. If it is, that's interesting. That's my impression of Wisconsin. I don't know if that's a good thing. But very good series. Jillian Moody says, I have some beginner, some intermediate, and some upper experience, lots of contract work. I have a hard time finding regular work. Yeah, because you don't fit into a standard, like a standard sort of resume, right? And as we go into the future, there are increasingly more and more people like you. And so recruiters would have a hard time with that because they can't fit you into a little box the way they've been taught. So once again, what's the answer? Here's yet another classic example of how you can solve that problem through networking. Networking is perfect for this. Okay. If you have some upper experience, you can probably relate to some executives. When you have an informational interview with a few executives that you don't know, you can probably present yourself in a very professional way, where you follow reasonable protocol, manners, all that kind of stuff, etiquette, and make a good impression. So you will have a bit of an advantage at doing it. Mihai S. says, I've been invited to an interview at a big tech company, which usually ask algorithm questions. Okay. I have many years of experience, but I need to refresh my knowledge on algorithms. Should I still try? Well, look, it depends what you want to do. If this is the type of work you want to do, then the answer is obvious, yes. If you're not interested in that work and you don't feel that, these are legitimate questions that demonstrate your value for the work and you're just unwilling to go through the whole thing, there's your answer right there. I mean, I can't say what you should do. What you should do depends on your goals and your situation. So, Castro says, sorry, I didn't know this was an English grammar class. I'll make sure. It isn't, but I need to understand what you're saying. I'll make sure to pay extra attention to typos that are. It's more than typos, Castro. It's when the entire grammar of your sentence is incorrect. I have trouble understanding what precisely you mean and what you're asking. It's not a big deal. I'm just saying the more you can write clearly, that's a skill. Okay. And the other thing is that in the grand scheme of things, whether you write with perfect grammar or not might not really be that big of a deal. However, it's one of the first things when you interact with people, and that can make a first impression. That's why it's a lot more important than maybe it should be. Like, for example, how do you get a job? You first start by sending an application into a recruiter or something. Right now, if it's riddled with errors and grammatical issues, that forms the first impression that you're going to make to these people, right? Now, if it's a low-level job, maybe people don't care. But if it's a higher-level job, it's like a manager or something, depending on who the receiver is, that could be a make-or-break issue. So all I'm saying is that it's definitely a good thing to just get into the habit of writing it. And even if you don't want to, look, I'm old school. Now you have spell checkers and grammar checkers everywhere. So you can even automate it. Okay. So you still don't even have to write, properly and, add all the extra periods and commas and, it'll just fix it up for you. So learning that is also extremely useful. EGR NHL, I remember you. How do I explain wanting to leave my current job if it has been less than a year? Why do you need to explain? I know that's not what you're asking, but why would you need to give anyone an explanation? It's like, what? This job isn't doing it for me anymore. It doesn't pay very much. I could do better. Why do I need to justify it to anyone? You don't have to say anything at all. If you want to leave, go ahead and leave. Go, and before you leave, go and get something lined up. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't have to justify yourself to your current employer. Your current employer is going to do what's in their best interest, and that includes laying off employees when they feel like it, right? They have that power, and a lot of them exercise it. Sometimes they're not even forced to lay people off. They choose to do it. They could have kept those people employed. They could have maybe reallocated them, but We can make a tiny bit more by doing this. That's what we do. Okay. Conversely, the other side of the coin is that you aren't a slave to them. You're not beholden to them in any ways. You work there because they pay you. And if you would much rather work somewhere else, you have the freedom to go and do that. Okay? You don't have to justify yourself to anyone. Even in an exit interview, I have done many, many exit interviews in my time. Some people are more forthcoming than others. Some people flatly refuse to do an exit interview. They just take off. And it's like, what are you going to do? You know, you have no power over them anymore. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So you, even in an exit interview, you don't have to justify yourself. Okay. Now, I know I totally avoided that question, but let's just see here. Holy crap, I am behind. There's a whole screen of extra questions here. How do I explain wanting to leave my job within less than a year? Okay, now let's, for the sake of argument, let's say you had to provide or you wanted to provide a genuine explanation of why. If you're trying to be diplomatic about it, I would say it's something to do with your goals, okay? You feel like, you know, this has been a great place. I've learned a lot. I've loved working here, blah, 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 blah. But I have ambitions to maybe continue my learning experience. And for that, I'm really interested in being in different situations, solving different problems, and, you know, picking up new skills that way. So that's my reason to leave. You know, if you had to come up with something pretty sounding that people could accept, but at the same time didn't piss anyone off unnecessarily, I would say something like that, just personally. MF says hello. Hello, MF. Julia. Hey, Bill, what is the best way to become skillful in networking, especially with new customers? New customers. You're networking with customers? Like, this is part of a work thing? Well, look, okay, I'm totally biased here, obviously, but I would say get my course, right? How to hire, because I cover that specifically. Okay, if you're talking about networking for your career, I intentionally put all my advice in one place in very organized way with templates, etc. So I'm going to say that, okay? Now, I have free videos. You could also do that. But generally, to answer your question, I would say, like, learn some basic principles. Like, for example, how to initiate a conversation with a desirable person, how to discover those people, how to reach them, and then what to say. So, like, learn that, you know, by research or whatever method you want to use. Get answers to those questions. Then, once you have a basic idea of like how it's done, go out and practice. Okay. The great thing is that no matter where you are, even if you're in like a town of like 50,000 people, there will probably be many, many people that you could contact, and you never have to interact with ever again if you don't want to. Okay? People maybe in your industry or ancillary to your industry that are at a higher level. You know, you want to get experience networking. You want to get experience, you know, getting in their good books, making a good first impression, creating relationships where maybe later on you can go and capitalize on that relationship by, like, you know, asking them for information or, you know, whatever. There are many, many people out there. So you can do this if you're willing to put in the work. Practice will make perfect. And after a few of these, just like a job interview, after you do a few job interviews, you kind of know how it goes. You feel a lot more you're confident in yourself, and you know what to say, you know? And okay, the process may not be super fun all the time, just like job interviewing, but it's skills that last you a lifetime, and they open a lot of doors for you. So learn some of the protocol and the techniques to ask for things and initiate conversations, and then go out and practice it. Okay, it's really very simple. Hopefully that makes sense. But great question, Julia. More people should be asking that question. That really is the key to overcoming a lot of issues when it comes to job search. Castro, and it wasn't an advertisement. You mentioned expensive coffee, 2 coffee companies, and that you aren't an aficionado but buy expensive. Mentioned the espresso effect. You are overqualified if the employer does not want to pay what you are worth. Well, I don't know. That's a question of semantics. It depends on how you define overqualified. Overqualified for a supervisor position. I mean, okay. Does anyone go to, I mean, this is the thing. People get hung up on semantics. And me being the person that I am, I'm a technical person at heart. And I don't really care or respect terminology for terminology's sake. I prefer to just cut through to the principle or the issue. And when someone says you're overqualified, my initial reaction is, I don't understand what you mean by that. Does it mean that I would not want to do this job? Or does it mean that I would require more money to keep me motivated than you're willing to pay? Or does it mean that you don't want to employ me because you suspect that my loyalties may lie elsewhere, or there's some other issue that you're assuming that I have that I may or may not have? So what are we talking about exactly? You know, that's the issue I have with that. It's also a tactic to try and get a rise out of people by accusing them of being overqualified. Once they have invited you to this interaction, they then accuse you of being overqualified. The sort of non-spoken component of that is that you're wasting my time by being here when I invited you to be here. You know, so I mean, I don't get hung up on these words. I want to know exactly what your issue is. Okay, and what specifically there's a problem, because sometimes it's because you're assuming something that's not actually there. So we're talking cross purposes, right? So, I mean, all that stuff is kind of going on behind the scenes. That's how maybe a lawyer might look at it. In practice, you don't explore that in great detail. You just give a sort of blanket answer that shuts people up and smooth things over, and away you go. You know, if it's a much more high-level discussion, then you might want to actually get into, you know, the root cause of this issue. You know, but I don't like these sort of, like, you know, clever word plays that people do. A lot of times they're meaningless. And what they're doing is they're actually probing for something that is completely unspoken. You know, so let's talk about that. What do you want to know? I have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to try and go through all these questions in 10 minutes. Let's see here. Music 80s says, how would I answer a question about how I got along with my supervisor and why I'm applying for this position as the salary is less than the current position? What? Why am I applying for this position as the salary is less than your current position? Oh, I see. You're taking a step down. Oh, there's many ways you can answer that. Okay, how I got along with my supervisor, the answer is great. Okay? If your supervisor is very similar to you, you could say my supervisor was a very similar type of person to myself, in the sense that when they laid out their expectations, I intuitively got what they were saying, and I always met their expectations. And we got along really well as people also, which was the icing on the cake. If your supervisor was quite different to you, you could say, well, you know, we got along actually really well. And, you know, they were a different type of person, which was quite interesting. And, but I've had experience dealing with people that are different to me before. You know, either I'm an introvert, they're an extrovert, or, you know, I come from this background, they come from that background. You know, I've had experience with that. And so I understand what's important to them. And that's why I'm always able to speak their language and to meet their expectations. Why are you applying for the position? The answer is because I have this. And oh, look, that's exactly what you said you're looking for. You know, why is the salary less than your current position? Why would they know that? Did you volunteer how much you're making right now? Is that why they would say something like that? Usually you don't volunteer that for this reason, right? Okay. Now, if someone put a gun to my head and said, like, answer this question, I would say, well, okay, okay, you got me. I do make a little bit more now. However, this job does offer me things that I don't quite have. And compensation is more than just money. For example, you guys offer more flexible vacation. You offer a much more desirable work environment. The culture of this organization, it's a lot friendlier. It's a lot easier going. People tend to enjoy themselves more and feel more content in their roles here. There's opportunities for advancement here. I love that dealing with that person. I've dealt with them before, and or I've heard great things about working here. And my current position pays me money, but it's really a very hostile kind of, it's not the most welcoming environment. And I'm looking to make a move into that direction where I will feel more passionate and committed to my role. So these are all the reasons why I would like to work here. And I'm willing to take a pay cut to do it, because you guys have all these other aspects that I highly value and prize. I'd say something like that. But all this is going to vary depending on what your situation is. Hopefully that helps. Aunt Johnson, I'm leaning towards taking my talents down to Texas. You got to buy a hat if you're going to do that. And you got to put the horns on your giant, enormous car. All I can say is yippee-yi-ki-yay. I have family there, and it's more tech opportunities. Yeah, like, they had Texas Instruments. They had like a lot of stuff. It's like Houston and stuff. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of really happening stuff down there in the tech world, and it has been for quite a while. I've been killing all my interviews and pre-screening and still no offer letters. Keep fighting. Yeah, and as I say, do networking. Like, get the job also through networking. Don't just be applying to things. Okay? If for no other reason, then, what do they say? Like, what's the met? I mean, I don't have data on this, but it's something like 80% of candidates are competing for the 20% of jobs that are posted. There's a very high competition for those jobs, whereas there's very few people competing for all the other jobs, like the substantially more jobs that are not posted publicly. So that alone is reason to do it. You're absolutely welcome, Jillian. Yeah, Texas is happening. Come on. Was it espresso versus espresso? Yeah. It's like an espresso, but with a little more kick. A little more green leaves. Houston native right here. Yeah. Castro. Okay, I'm not making any headway. There's still too many questions. You must not be on YouTube too much. Live videos aren't necessarily a professional environment. Okay, I don't know who you're talking to, but hopefully it's pretty benign. Are your advices also applicable in German working environment? Yeah, vast majority of them. I mean, Germany is still part of the world, and these are pretty universal principles. They're also applicable across most industries, too. Different industries sometimes, like the way they do things in fine arts or the world of theater, like I mentioned earlier, is maybe a little bit different from the world of IT, but the general principles still apply. Music 80s, like the faux pop sounds of the 80s. How would you suggest answering questions about after-work jobs, hobbies, participation in job-related organizations? I don't know what you mean exactly, but basically you do not want to mention that you have got anything else going on the side. Okay? They will regard that as a red flag. Okay? Because your loyalties are now divided. If they hire you, they don't know if you're really going to prioritize them or you're going to be loyal to your other job. Okay? I mean, generally, I don't like to talk about like hobbies and stuff like that in job interviews. It's stupid. It really is. It's stupid, especially for like worker level jobs. What the hell does it matter? It's because there's a lot of pseudoscience going on that they think that they can predict all kinds of things about you based on what you say your hobbies are, right? Or they have biases for or against certain hobbies. So if you say, I like to go shoot guns or something, and, depending on the person interviewing you, maybe maybe that's a red flag for them. You're just eliminating yourself, right? They're getting the dirt on you. So, I tend to, I tend to advise people to minimize that. I mean, sometimes there's no harm in it, but it's really not relevant. You know what I mean? You don't want to talk off the top of your head in a job interview. The more information they give you, the more ammunition is there that they can eliminate you with one of those things. You just happen to say something that, unbeknownst to you, they think is bad, right? Okay, Castro. Oh, you were talking to me about the live videos aren't necessary a professional environment. Oh, okay. I don't know what you mean by that. He spoke of first impressions. Okay. It is not a stretch to ask for verification of qualification when taking advice from someone on your career choices. One of the most important decisions and processes of your life. Are you talking about like my qualifications and stuff? Listen, don't take my word for anything, okay? You need to evaluate. Don't take anyone's word on anything. If you want to try something, try it. If you don't want to try something, don't try it. That's the best way to proceed, okay? You are your own person. And some things in life, how can I put this? I mean, I'm not a life advice type person, but, young people just don't learn. They don't learn it till they're older. For example, I put out some videos on like how to answer job interview questions. I regularly get these sort of outraged comments from especially what seems to me like a lot of very young people, like early 20s, basically saying this is BS, job interviews, you should just go in there and be honest. That kind of annoys me because I'm not suggesting people should not be honest. What I am saying is that you got to watch what you say, because what you say is making a first impression for people that don't know you. And if you say the wrong thing, it can, you can sort of eliminate yourself by saying something you think is benign, but to them, it makes a very bad first impression, right? So I get regularly challenged on this stuff, and I don't engage in that stuff because it's like, look, you just need to go out into the world for a while. And if you have these opinions, which, is common to what people in their early 20s think, I had those opinions too. You learn eventually that doesn't work. People don't behave like that, how you think they do, and there's nothing I can say to you that will convince you of this. You have to learn it the hard way. Try it that way. Try it the way you think it should be and see how well that goes. And I mean, I'm pretty confident that at some point in the future, you're going to realize that like, well, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there's more to this. And then you actually start opening your mind to maybe how things actually work. And then you make some progress, right? So, you know what I'm saying? Don't take someone's advice because they're supposedly an authority on it. There's a lot of people that are authorities on a lot of things that are just plain wrong. I mean, you see this everywhere. People that have all the qualifications you could ever ask for, and they're completely wrong to a humiliating degree, So don't take my word or anyone's word for anything. Go out and verify stuff. That's how you learn. That's how you learn empirically. And no matter what you're sure of, there's so many things in this world that a fallacy of thinking is assuming that my experience applies across the board in every situation, right? That's also a falsehood. And especially in what we're talking about here, like even if you just limit it to job interviews, I mean, there's everything you could ever possibly imagine. There's going to be somebody out there that says, oh, I said that and they hired me, right? It's like, yeah, okay, I'm not disputing that. But if you're then making the jump to say that you should say that, and in the majority of situations it will work, that's a fallacy, right? So don't take my word for anything. If this is, if this makes sense to you, if it's in line with maybe some observations, maybe it's helpful. But if it's not, that's fine too. Okay, I really have to wrap this up. This is my kind of time limit, but I see there's like 3 questions here. Rain Reox says, yeah, obvious reason if we go internally, I guess. Aunt Johnson, I'm in my early 30s and your channel is pure gold. Well, thank you, Aunt Johnson. I'm glad it's helpful. Castro, well, those people are being ignorant. Okay, here we go. Now it descends into name calling and insults. The fun part is then we get to argue about it anonymously, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that. Anyway, thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Even you, Castro. Okay. I wish you all the success. If you have any questions going forward, at least certainly next week, I will be here, same time, same place. Other than that, check out my YouTube channel. Thank you for 400,000 subscribers. That's really cool. And I will see you guys very soon. Take care.